Hello, my fellow readers. It's I, Dark Symphony 777. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Go, go, go. It's I, Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, the link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that, as well as make sure to read the story before watching it. So, the story we are reviewing today is, let me just move this out of the way, Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Cold Stare V. It is a Mario fan fiction, and I actually remembered this story for one reason: the ending. We'll get to that when we get to that, but trust me when I say the ending kind of stuck with me for a long time. And the reason I wanted to review the story is two reasons. One, this was the last Vivian story I have not reviewed yet. I think there is one more. It was a crossover with Ed and Eddie, but I don't know whether or not to actually review this. It's Vivian, But the main reason I wanted to read the story is I actually remembered. It didn't happen recently. It happened like almost a year ago now, where I got into, not a year ago, way earlier this year, like around either January or February, where I had a conversation with someone over Vivian as a character. It was in my review of Better Off Alone, and how this person didn't particularly like Vivian's character in that story, and much preferred Vivian's characterization in Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I thought, well, maybe sometime down the line I'll review Somewhere Over the Rainbow and kind of talk about Vivian and all this, just and more or less just get this story out of the way, because I have been actually low-key kind of been wanting to think about reviewing this. Never came up in conversation, but it's always been on my mind. I still like my Vivian plushie, except for the arm. Like the arm, I gotta hopefully that arm stays fixed. I had to resew the arm for a job at sea. But let's get started with the review. So, what is the plot? So, the plot takes place a couple months after the events of Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door. Everyone is living happily. Everyone is having fun and goofing off. And we start with Vivian. Vivian is more or less the main character in this story. One of the two main characters, her and Mario, where she wakes up and she gets a letter from Parakarry from the original Paper Mario. Fun fact, all the partners from the original Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 were actually supposed to cameo in Thousand Year Door. Parakarry actually can, and the only ones who actually showed up in the game are Parakarry, who appears in the very opening cutscene when you start the game to deliver some letters, as well as Lady Bow, who actually appears in Poshley Heights in the post game. There is some kind of rumor that one of the Goombas you meet in the Koopa Village in Chapter 1 is actually Goombario. That's unknown. But, and it's fine. But let's get back to the story. Vivian gets a letter from Parakarry, who basically says, hey, we got this letter from Mortiva, which is a letter from a god, from a mysterious benefactor who wants her and all her friends who happen to be in the events of Thousand Year Door to come to this island to help out the gods with a task. Vivian, very hesitant because she's not sure whether or not to bring her sisters, asks Beldum and said, can I go? And Beldum's like, yeah, you can go, but double punishment for you. Vivian's like, okay, double punishment. Let's go. But right before she leaves, Vivian meets up with Dupless, who basically is like, hey, I'm here to clean your stuff. I got a little brush to clean your stuff. And the story kind of kicks off from there. We do have some kind of weird side plots during the event when they're on the cruise ship. There is some moving parts, but the main But the main plot is Mario, Peach, because Peach actually invites herself. Since she's Peach, she has enough money to pay for the ticket to go to Motiva, and it's like, I'm joining you. Here's a ticket. Here's a ticket. I'm buying my tickets. And goes on her own. And the rest of the groups have the ticket to invite themselves. They go to the island of Motiva to find these relics that were pretty much just forgotten about by the main god, Renus, who's like, well, the god. Have you ever heard of the story of the rainbow, the real rainbow, which is supposedly in this story a sort of defense grid meant to protect the Earth from, like, oh, I hit the table. It's supposed to protect the Earth from interplanetary threats, and he's like, I don't care that much. I mean, the X-Nox showed up, and I was like kind of worried, but then they got taken out like pretty quickly. So it's like, it'd be nice to have, but we're not gonna force you. You can go ahead if you want to find it. There you go. And then we have this, and that's the main plot, like them finding these relics to basically turn them back on the rainbow to prevent the X-Nox from possibly invading again, or any other people who would invade it. And then we have a weird side plot where during the events of the cruise ship, and bear with me because this side plot is very weird. Goombella somehow gets clairvoyance and sees all these people freaking out, and she gets everyone out of just run away. And then a couple of sentences later, everyone comes out of the room where they were basically watching a comedy troupe perform for the people who work on the ship. And apparently the comedy group decided to have a little prank, play a little prank on all the passengers by rigging the seats underneath everyone with like hooks to give them wedgies. So Goombella got everyone out of Dodge to avoid atomic wedgies, and then she starts freaking out because, like, oh no, we got the atomic wedgie gods angry. Oh no! Which leads Goombella to panic. And I shit you not, this is one gigantic reference to Final Destination of all things. Like, this is literally one gigantic Final Destination reference. And Goombella is purposely trying to make sure the rest of her friends not get atomic wedgied, because they do this whole spiel like, oh, atomic wedgies was actually a torture tool. It was like rendered illegal because people could die from the wedgies. And everyone's like wondering, it's like, how are like half of us gonna get hit by wedgie, because like we don't wear like underwear or clothes or anything. Like, how does that work? Trust me when I say all of them get wedgied. They do some kind of like funny thing with Flurry, but that's very beside the point. What I'm saying is, this is a really, really weird subplot, because it's literally just protect my friends from being wedgied from a god of atomic wedgies. Yes, there is a god in the story that's whole shtick is he give people an atomic wedgies. Don't ask me how that make any sense. I don't know. I don't know. Just question that. Just throw it down the trash. So the plot kind of follows a similar theme of repeating itself. They go to a location. Something happens. They get the relic. Someone gets wedgied along the way, and then they rinse and repeat. That's pretty much it. Meanwhile, Bowser, Grodus, and Crump are kind of just trying to figure out everything. And also, Dupless is there because in this story he has like a crush on Vivian, and he's trying to convince her that he loves her. And it's like, I'm sorry, with like the crystal heart and creepy steeple, like that's kind of the heart kind of like corrupting me. It's like, my precious. Don't question the logic behind this. Don't question the $150 plush. And over time we get like a really, really kind of disturbing ideas behind with Vivian's character, because this is honestly where the bulk of this story is, about Vivian and kind of exploring the Shadow Queen as a character. I'm not gonna spoil anything until I get to the end. Spoilers. I'm gonna be spoiling the ending pretty much entirely once I get to the end. So at the end of the day, they stop the bad guys. They save the world. And then finally, Goombella, the person who had the power to prevent being wedgied, walked up to the god of wedgies, and then he wedgied her. And everyone lived happily ever after. It's like, with Goombella, it's like, oh, my legs! You're Goomba. It's like, I don't know how you got underwear there, but you did! Ah! Oh, God. But yeah, that's more or less the plot. It's not so much that there isn't much depth to it, because there is a couple subplots, but they're more locked behind the characters themselves rather than anything. And the only character that really gets any substantial character developments are Vivian and Goombella with the whole wedgie thing. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. So let's talk about the only two characters worth talking about, Vivian and Dupless. Dupless was actually done really well. He comes off as a very likable guy. He does have like this little. He does reveal that he was kind of corrupted by the Ruby Heart and during the events of Creepy Steeple, and for whom the bell tolls, and kind of fell in love with Vivian after she beat him while he was disguised as Mario. And basically his whole arc is wanting to at least admit to Vivian, even if, like, I like the fact that in the story he's like even admits that, like, I don't really care if you reciprocate my love. I at least want to tell you that I do love you. It's up to you. It's technically up to Vivian to reciprocate those feelings, but his whole character is just saying those three words, "I love you," to Vivian, and then that's what happens afterwards. Leave that up to fate. And it's much more or less his character arc. There's not really much past that. Then we get Le Vivian. Oh boy! Let's talk about the Vivian here. I'm gonna spoil this and say that the best part of this story was Vivian's character. And that was actually something I agreed with the person I was talking to about Vivian's character, is the fact that Vivian in Somewhere Over the Rainbow is a much better character than Vivian in Better Off Alone. However, that's kind of balanced by the fact that Better Off Alone is on the whole a much better written story than Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It has better care. Besides Vivian, it had a much better characters. Like you look at the character arcs and the characterization of all the characters in Better Off Alone. Like you had depth to all the characters. Like you had depth with Bobbery and Goombella, and there was a whole mystery with Miss Mouse, and we got to see the group as a group interact, because halfway through the story Mario leaves, and thus Mario's not really there, and since even when Mario was there he was pretty much silent, so all the partners got screen time. But in Somewhere in the Rainbow, in terms of like actual substantial character developments, you really only have Vivian as the only character who gets substantial time to get any character development. And and it's easier to see Vivian's character shine in the story when she's the only character that gets this sort of development. All the other characters kind of get like scraps here and there, but don't really get as much depth as Vivian, so it's easier to notice the fact that Vivian had much more story to tell, because a lot of the story actually revolves around Vivian and her relationship with the Shadow Queen. Meanwhile, with Better Off Alone, you not only had Vivian's character, you also had Coops' character, you had Miss Miles' character, Flurry, Goombella, Bobbery, Gonzalez Jr. You had a big group of characters, and even then, you had that 4-chapter little mini arc that kind of explored Vivian's sister Lillian and kind of the backstory of the 4 heroes. There was much more. Vivian was not by herself in the character department in Better Off Alone. Hence why you can make the argument that Vivian's character in Somewhere Over the Rainbow is much better than Better Off Alone, because it's much easier to see what Vivian does in the story, because a large portion of it, at least plays a part in how she grows in the story. But I will say it is more natural in this story, because we get it, because unlike Better Off Alone, which focuses more on her inferiority complex and more focuses on more despondent, kind of more depressed Vivian, this one is more of a natural extension of her canon self from Thousand Year Door. Like, we see a more confident Vivian who's willing to stand up for her beliefs, but still has that little shyness of her. I still think that in terms of the four versions of Vivian and the four fan fictions that she is a main character in, it's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Better Off Alone, The Mole, Trader Abroad, no, Saboteur's Island. Trader Abroad has Toadette, and Kingdom Beyond Midnight. Kingdom Beyond Midnight has the best Vivian. It would be, if I placed these 4 stories in order, like which one had the best Vivian to which one had the worst Vivian, it would be Kingdom Beyond Midnight, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Better Off Alone, and then Saboteur's Island would have the worst Vivian, because her character arc in that story is literally just a 1-for-1 of her 1,000-year door arc with nothing new to show for it. It's literally just a 1-for-1 retelling of her arc. So and Kingdom Beyond Midnight Vivian and Somewhere Over the Rainbow Vivian have pretty much the same idea behind them. Kingdom Beyond Midnight Vivian just has a better execution of that very same character in Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's just a more confident Vivian who's still shy, who's very kind, who's willing to stand up for her beliefs, but is not a doormat anymore, and still believes in herself and wants to be worthwhile and find who she is and her happiness as you know. But yeah, that's it with the characters. Again, there's not much to deal with Vivian's character. It's just a natural extension of how she was in Thousand Year Door. We did get there are some really interesting moments where we have a connection, because in order to find the relics, they have an orb. No, I'll talk about this later, I think, because that's more important to the ending. Grammar and writing, absolutely atrocious. It's literally, there is a lot of grammar. It's not so much the grammar errors. The grammar is actually pretty spot on in the story. It's the writing. It's walls of text. Okay, so it's literally just nonstop walls of text. They're small walls of text, but the fact that there's still walls of text is literally writing 101. Like it doesn't matter how it deserves mention. Like nobody likes reading walls of text. Nobody. It's so cumbersome to read. It's very, very confusing. Just nobody likes it. Nobody likes that stuff. No, and it honestly feels like every sentence, it's just you drew a paragraph, and then you just bump it down, and you do a sentence, bump it down. That's like how different walls of text, but it's still technically a wall of text. That's fine. That's it with the writing and grammar. Like, grammar is actually surprisingly well done. It's just really just really hard to read at times. Pacing. The story is actually relatively paced at briskly. It like, hey, we're giving each time to sink our teeth into the world and everything that's going on. But every time when they actually go on the missions, it's actually done relatively quickly. How long is the story? I'm trying to remember how long the story. The story is only like nearly 140,000 words. So it's not a short story by any means. But, you know, we have that feeling that whenever it's on, when they're actively searching for a relic, it's actually incredibly fast paced. But whenever they're not searching for the relic, the author gives it time to slow everything back, to get everyone breathing, and maybe like try and give some mystery to the overarching plot, and let everyone breathe. Maybe give someone a wedgie as you dope, and just have a little fun with the writing and giving Vivian something to do. Again, Vivian's the only character that really worth talking about. She's the only one who gets like focus scrubbed out at the moment. But yeah, we do have, it is a nice change of pace with switching from fast to slow depending on how they're actively searching for the relic. Even it's kind of cut short because Perry actually finds one himself. Because yeah, Perry's there and he's like, "Hey, I don't know why I'm here, but I found this frog and he had this in his stomach." And it's like, I helped him and he gave me this. Here you go. But yeah, that's the review of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Now, would I recommend this story? No! Let me tell you why. 2 reasons. One, the beginning, specifically the first chapter, is very, very atrocious. Like, we have Vivian acting completely out of character. I know I mentioned how this Vivian is actually a natural extension of how she acted in Thousand Year Door, but it still doesn't behoove the fact that she randomly decided to curse. Like, she literally decided to, here you go, fuck that dopeless, and then just completely, while flicking him off and then setting him on fire at the same time. That just comes off as really forced and not really fitting what should be in a natural extension of Vivian. Like the author really fixes her character in the second chapter, but combined with the fact that this is like a gigantic bunch of walls of text, Vivian completely acting like completely not Vivian, like as the rest of the story will show. And also just the general sense of nothing really working that well. It's just nothing honestly works the way it does in the first story. Like, granted, you have to read the first. It actually starts getting a little bit good in the second chapter, so you don't have to go that far into the story. But the walls of text is just such a massive turnoff that 90% of people are just not going to read it because they're just gonna see the actual writing style and said, no, hard pass. And the other thing, that ending. Let's just talk about it, because now the main bulk of the review is over. It's done with. I want to shit on this absolutely horrendous ending, because this ending stuck with me for years as the worst ending I've ever seen in any fan fiction ever. It's so bad. So let's set the scene for this ending, for this climax. They found all the relics. And over the relics, in order for them to find the relics, they had this crystal ball that had a purple smoke in it. And what the purple smoke could do is it would launch into the map that Goombella found, because actually Goombella, apparently they found the map in the Thousand Year Door. I can't remember if they found in the Thousand Year Door or in the Mushroom. No, yeah, it was in the map. It was the map was found in the Thousand Year Door. Like, you remember how at the end of Thousand Year Door, if you ever played the game, Professor the professor who helps you out with exposition that said, "Oh, we found the treasure." It was just a map. Yeah, this is that map. And the purple smoke would interact with the map and basically show where on Mortiva a relic was. But it would also show a poem verse, like a poem. Let me see if I can get to the poem. Because I actually want to read this now. I want to read this poem, and here he is. Here is the full poem. The reason I want to say this full poem is it's actually important to how the climax leads up to it, because a large portion of the story is them wanting to find out specifically finding the relics, specifically not even to turn on the rainbow, but it's just they want to actually read the poem in its entirety. Because even in the story at the beginning, when they first meet Remus is like, you don't have to find the relics if you don't want to, but then they get ensnared by the poem. And this is the full poem as it says. Protector of the sky, grounded by the eye, of the ever-growing beast, which the light is its feast. Born from dark arts, we seize the gods' arts, we live to see die the protector of the sky. Crooks, rogues, and thieves plague the town by the sea. This dark and shadowed war, a baby girl it bore. A land of toadstool where an empire rules, where kings kill for joy and spawn a boy. But a jet loves a lass, overseas they may pass, and when together in love may the world drown in blood. The gods' art we take, the gods' art we shape, and so when in the post again, they shall bring the world's end. For heroes halt our plans, we hide the arts across our lands, and seek refuge in our dens, we shall meet one day again. For heroes trap my bride, she's no longer by my side, not till open once more is the 1,000-year door. So, spoiler, the main villain of this story is actually the Shadow King, who orchestrated this entire plot to shroud the world in shadow along with the Queen. However, he lived very, very far from Brookport, and while he was actually trying to, he hid in the body of the Earth God Xanthier. And so when he went to go get the Shadow Queen, Mario killed the Shadow Queen and basically rendered her this smoke ball. The purple smoke that I mentioned earlier in that crystal ball is actually the remnants of the Shadow Queen's soul. And it's the Shadow Queen who leads them all across Mortiva to get the relics to do whatever dastardly plot is needed. So that leads us to the climax. And now that we set the stage, let me explain why this is so bad. So, Mario and gang, they all go into the area where the gods reside. And they basically tell Remus, with Xanthier by their side, hey, we all the relics. Let's activate the rainbow. He goes like, excellent, let's go. Meanwhile, outside, Parakarry manages to meet up with Bowser, Crump, and Grotus, and Parakarry basically telling Bowser, excuse me, we gotta get out of here. We gotta stop Mario from doing what he needs to do, because if he puts the relics, something bad's gonna happen. And Bowser's like, yeah. It's like, oh, so they have Peach. Like, I'll save you! And so they did. So what happens is, Mario and the gang, they get the relics ready, and they're nervous. Because at this point in time, they realize something is up. Because here's another plot point that happened periodically throughout the story. The Shadow Queen would leave the crystal ball, and it would possess Vivian, and basically use Vivian as a vessel to basically extend the plant. So basically, before they went after the final relic, Vivian was possessed by the Queen to hypnotize Mario to convince everyone to stay on the island and find the final relic, because they actually kind of wisely got genre savvy and realized this sounds very much like a very suspicious trap, and I don't think it's worth it. And so the Shadow Queen hypnotizes Mario with Vivian's eyes to basically force them to continue the plot. It's not so much that they want to; it's they kind of force to. And even then, the rest of the partners like, no, 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 we're sticking our foot down. We're leaving. We don't like how this poem is going out because they're relying everything on the poem, and Mario drags them off onto the sea. The boat leaving Mortia leaves. They kind of get Flurry kind of absorbs a bunch of water and turns into like a little raft to kind of fly out, get everyone on and fly after them. When Lightning Bolt by Marilyn, oh yeah, spoiler, Beldam and Marilyn are back. Hit the ship and cause it to explode, leading it to this moment. They finally lower the relics. The relics activate. It fires the rainbow, and instead of going up, it goes down, hits the island Mortiva, and completely destroys the Earth. Like literally destroys the Earth. And I'm like, this is surprising. Like I knew, like it was very obvious that it was going to be a trap, but it's just more how would it play out. Then Xanthier revealed himself to be the Shadow King, possessing Xanthier. Fires a magic blast as Remus drops off the platform and dies. So there's no gods left. It's like, ha 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 ha. And so they're wondering, and so it's like, well, I'm here, I'm in charge. I'll let you answer a question before I kick your asses. They kind of wonder what was up with the poem. The Shadow King basically says, "Oh yeah, that's the end of the poem. That's it. There's no extra verse after that." I'd even talked about his backstory of him being raised in the Mushroom Kingdom, which was ruled by a tyrant who used wedgie executions. I'm not making this up. And then also kind of put Flurry in a dress. Why put Flurry in a dress? Specifically because that dress had underwear. And so when Flurry kind of falls off and she forgets that she can float, she kind of catches onto Bowser's claw, and that gives her a wedgie. It's literally just so Flurry can get wedgied. Like that's literally the whole point of Flurry getting put in a dress. And so what happens is they fight. The Shadow Queen completely curb stomps everyone. And then it's like, oh, we gotta replan everything. Bowser joins them. Beldam and Marilyn show up, grab Vivian, drag her into the shadows. Dupless goes after them. Dupless manages to get Vivian away from Beldam and Miriam. The Shadow Queen is mad. And then here's where it gets bad. They start going for a huddle. And then it goes from like a very frightening thing, because everything up to this point was actually really well done. It was really frightening. You had the backdrop of the entire planet burning, and everyone who's left is on this one single platform. And Bowser and Grottus and Crump. They managed to rescue Vivian. It's presented as the king as this very, very indomitable opponent. And then they huddle, and the king's like, oh, let me join you. It's like, nope. And it's like, oh, what fucking hell? Is this gonna go? Oh, no. Oh, why are they injecting comedy? The wedgie thing. Fine. I hated it, but at least it made sense, because they still, because the author still wanted to at least finish because at that point, the only people who weren't wedgied were Goombella and Flurry, so it's like, okay, at least let Flurry get wedgied, so that way Goombella, They all huddle. The Shadow King wants to join them. They tell him no, and he starts pouting, and I'm actually getting confused at this point. Like, why are they doing this? Like, why is the story randomly just going this weird comedy thing? out of nowhere, and then it gets weirder. Like, let me just go. Let me just go to it. I don't. Like, I think it's just better to just tell you. Like, it's. I mean. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. All right, here you go. This is like near the end of chapter 10 because it's 11 chapter story. They huddle. They break up. And then it gets weird when they start doing these weird combination attacks. Like, okay, Bowser retreats in the shell while Mario reluctantly climbed into Flurry's huge mouth. And I just stopped reading when I read that sentence. I'm like, what? Just what? Huh? What? What is a man? A miserable little pile. And then Crump does his crumple bomb when he just sets on someone, and Pound in a flurry spits Mario out, hits Bowser, and then he uses the shell to hit Bowser, and then it goes from actually thrilling and horror, like nightmare fueled horror, to like overt comedy, where it's like they do all these combination moves, and then literally Yoshi randomly shouts Mortal Kombat, like just randomly plays like a real life version of Mortal Kombat against the Shadow Queen, and it's like, what? And he's like, oh no, I can't stop your fresh moves, and I'm just stupefied. It's like, what the fuck am I reading? Like, I have never, even when I read Forged Destiny, I have not it just switch from a really interesting to just so goofy. It just enters complete crap territory. Like, this climax is just so horrendously just flips on its head. Like, so you built this guy up immediately really well, I might add, despite the fact he only reveals himself as an antagonist through like secondhand wording with the poem as well as the lore, and then in this same chapter they actually build him up really well for like the limited amount of time you have, and then you just treat him like a jobber, and then you don't even treat him like a jobber, you treat him like a joke. Like, what is this? It's like you he hits Bowser, like Mario hits Bowser, and Bowser starts flying shells, and Bob reaches randomly on the shell, and he just blows up while on the shell, and he's just throwing stuff, and then like, I'm like, it's just so confusing. It's like, what is this? And like, at least with Dupless, he goes to save Vivian from Belgium and Maryland. It's fine. And then here comes the worst part. Like, okay, they beat Dupless. They realize that Vivian manages to get like her soul back, like because the Shadow Queen needs to possess someone with no heart, and in the story, the Shadow Sirens physically don't have a heart, but now Vivian randomly gets a heart. Okay, that's actually that's actually kind of a neat moment. It's fine. And then they realize, well, we're shit out of luck because, well, even if we beat these guys, what the hell are we gonna do? We're the only people left. And then Mario talks to her. It's like, do you have anything? And then here's the worst part. Grodus reveals that Tech had time travel technology. And when I first read this years ago, I literally stopped. It's like, no, I'm not reading this anymore. They're really gonna do the crappy time travel thing. Are they really gonna do the shitty time travel thing. No! No! And then he goes, we can. It fires a beam to the Earth to have it travel back 10 minutes. It's like, will that affect Tech too? No, Tech's on the moon, therefore it won't affect Tech. And I'm just like, you literally wrote yourself into a corner. And you're doing the worst possible thing to get out of it. It's so bad. It's so horrendously bad. No, and then it stays the course of bad. They distract the Shadow Queen so Tech can have time to power up and fire the laser. The laser hits Earth. Every time specifically just on the Earth, goes back 10 minutes. Because they also told Tech to send a message to Mario, and like once the beam fired, so that way this doesn't happen. Time goes back. They're about to place the relic. Mario gets the email from Tech on his mailbox SP. He reads it, and he goes, does anyone here know Tech? He goes, I know Tech. Peach coming in clutch. And then she reads the text like, then they all huddle with Vivian. It's like, how do we convince that Remus is the Shadow King? And so what Vivian does is Remus and Zenith come up, and Vivian slowly walks up. She's like, "Oh, great King! I know how you possess Zenith and try to bring our queen back." And she's like prostrating herself. It's like, so, which admittedly was actually kind of funny, but it still doesn't leverage the fact that you went through all these really dumb, ridiculous hoops to bring us to this point. And then Remus, manages to fight the Shadow King in his shadow form, beats that form, turns into human, manages to use his power to knock out Remus, not really beat him, but more just knock him out, or at least stun him. And then the Shadow King, as a human, is like, I am going to punish Vivian the same way I witnessed the Mushroom Kingdom punish the most grievous of souls. Wedgie. Oh no! It's like you're really psyching up Wedgies as like something on the level of waterboarding. And then they randomly just dogpile the Shadow King, and he turns into a soul, and it gets sent into the crystal ball with the queen. And they give it to Remus, and it's like, I'm just gonna forget, and it's like, no one can see this. And then he looks at the relic, and is like, oh, no wonder these things were like slightly disproportioned. And then they all look, and we see like, oh, yeah, like they purposely like recrafted them to look like really, really ugly. It's like, what do you think? And Remus fixes them, makes the rainbow, and it's like, ta-da! And then they all have a party, and then Goombella walks into Uber. It's like, why did you wedgie all this? Like, well, everyone has to get wedgied. Oh, by the way, so literally summons a pair of underwear on Goombella, turns around and just wedges her. It's like, I wedged all of you. It's like, well, I don't. And then Flurry goes, wait, I don't remember you wedging. It's like, exactly. Do you feel pain in your nether regions? It's like, I do. It's like, then I wedged you. And then the story just ends like that. What? 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 I don't. I'm just stupefied at just how that entire climax progressed. Just saying it out loud is just really really off. It's just horrible. Oh my god. Oh my god. So what would we? Oh! So what would I fix? Honestly, fix the writing. Let's get the thing. Let's get the big thing out of the way. The wedgie subplot. Let's just get that. I know I want to fix the climax, but let's let's just hold that off for a little bit. I'm so tempted to keep the wedgie plot because yes, it's stupid. Yes, it's childish. But even I have to admit the author actually got really creative how each character got wedgied. Yeah, it started very simple, like with Yoshi, he was the first one to get wedgied, and he just inadvertently trips and kind of lands on a like in the port where he gets wedgied. And then you have like more some iconic ones, like when how Peach gets wedgied is when they're in like a hot tub and they actually have like Eskimos who are like trying to practice ice fishing, and so he accidentally releases the lure too long when Peach is getting like a cocktail and kind of hits her kind of snags on her bottom, and then he pulls. And Peach gets like she gets the camel toe. She gets like oh that hurts that hurts very much. Here's my thing to how to fix this specific subplot. Honestly, I know probably some people are gonna complain about this. Keep the plot. Keep this silly, idiotic subplot alive. Yes, it's stupid. Yes, it's excuse me. It's a very childish reference to Final Destination. However, I think the author can do something by making wedgies kind of be like very threatening, because I like the idea of atomic wedgies being so threatening that people have actually died from them. Like they actually killed people with wedgies. So that's actually that's such a dumb idea, but at the same time it's so hilarious that and also it's dumb, it's hilarious, but at the same time it's completely like frightening because despite the fact how goofy it is, it plays the idea of the whole wedgie torturing thing completely seriously, and it actually surprisingly works. So I would just simply make the wedgie thing the single most frightening, the most nightmare fuel inducing thing ever in this story. Like you just play it as straight as you can. Like you have Goombella, she takes him to a library, she opens a book, and she shows them diagrams of like you see the people's pain, you see them holding their like underwear as it stretched to like infinite. It's like not only did people die, but the people who lived, they had to get new underwear. they had to replace hundreds upon hundreds of dollars of underwear because they took each and every pair of their underwear. What happened to the wear one? Boxers. They did it to them too. And just play that specific plot point as straight as you can. Fix up the grammar errors, and finally, let's just work on the error. So here's how I would do this climax. Instead of relying on this really, really out of nowhere time travel thing, what I would suggest is right before they actually go to the Heavens plot, they run into Parakarry, Bowser, Crump, and Grotus, and they kind of have a confrontation. Sorry, my mom just walked through. I wanted to save that. So Bowser and all of them confront Mario and the group, and they basically want Peach and all that. It's like, give me Peach, give me Peach. So they have a little scuffle, like mainly just Bowser and Mario. Like you can even do a thing where like Peach takes over and just whacks Bowser with like her umbrella. Like, no, you're not. We're trying to help the gods themselves. Like, what god? You mean this god's those grilly little trinkets? All right. So sorry. Now my family's moving about. I have to be careful. So Bowser basically calls him out. It's like, you're delivering these weird little trinkets to the gods. It's like, yeah, these are great. It's like, they don't look perfect to me. And so they actually take a look at it right before they get to the gods. They see that something's off about it. And I lost my train of thought. Okay, so I got it. They go and they go and do things. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, now I remember. Okay, so now the Mario and the gang, they actually look at the relics and they see that something's off. Like, they look weirdly outshapen because they were so focused on the poem and everything. It's like they never actually decided to take a look at the relics themselves. It's like, why does he look so weird? It's like, it looks like someone just completely just decided to fuck with them. And it's like, well, relics aren't supposed to look at that. And then here comes Grotus. Like, you can have Grotus take one look at it. It's like, well, yeah, someone looks like someone just added to it and just decided to like reform it. And that sets everyone's red flags over the poem. And then they completely glare at Mario. Mario's trying to remember everything. And then it's like, well, I'm trying to remember because it hurts so much. Vivian, realizing kind of hesitantly what's going on, realizes that he got brainwashed. And the only way to do it, she willingly takes off her hat, shows Mario her eyes, and basically orders Mario, ask him what's going on. And so what happens after she does that, the shadow possesses Vivian and attacks them. They manage to at least hold back Vivian, but then they also realize, well, it's the Shadow Queen. It's possessing Vivian. And so how they beat her is they basically just knock her out. Like, you can do it like a comedy thing, like, I don't know, Bowser picks up Grump and then just throws her at Vivian's head and just kind of conks her out that way. And so they grab Vivian. They realize, we got to figure out what's going on. Perry reveals, like, yeah, Xanthier's been acting weird, like very, very weird. And he thinks that he may have he might be the one behind it. So they decide to play along. But since Vivian is locked up, they got to get creative. So they set up this whole situation because they're trying to figure out what's going to happen. They also contact Tech ahead of time. Like, they actually contact Tech ahead of time this time to basically let Tech know. It's like, can you help us try and plan everything? I said, I got an idea. So what happens is they go into the base. They go into the god's house. Remus decides to say, whoop, whoop. They go everything. They enter the area where they're supposed to put the relics in. But before they could even get everything ready, and unlike last time, where Remus and Xanthier kind of join them afterwards, they join them right away. But then Bowser, Grotus, and Grump, who are in the know, show up. They attack. They knock out Remus. Like, they completely get Remus out of the way because they realize that without Vivian there, they're not really gonna be able to convincingly convince Remus that Xanthier is being possessed. And then once Remus is out of the way, they all turn on Xanthier. It's like, we know who you are. What? Who are you? Why are you doing this? Like, I'm just Xanthier. I'm just a rock. Like, no, we know you have connection to Vivian. Who are you? Like, okay, fine. I am the Shadow King. And basically they fight. But there's an actual purpose, like, because they haven't really been able to fix the relics, because Remus needs to be the one to fix the relics. The fight could be each of the characters, like, randomly each of the people have a relic. So when as the fight goes on, the Shadow King is completely curb stomping him, and every time when he gets a relic, he's the one who puts on the stuff, and it stays there, and they can't get it off. And so the fight becomes a really big race to keep all the relics from being put on the relic in order to that's going to nuke the Earth. And they do, and it's actually fairly fighting. It's fairly balanced. Like you can even still have the whole the backstory, and which leads to Flurry being wedgied. But instead, you would have to find a different way to get her wedgied. Like put her on the dress, and then in his anger, it's like, oh, he's dancing with Flurry, and then he sees Bowser sneaking up on him to try and bum rush him. He picks up Flurry coincidentally by the wedgie, and then just throws him out, chucks him out Bowser. Like, oh, and then Flurry's like clutching her non-existent nether's like, oh, my cloud down there. So how would the fight go on? Well, tech would play a role by firing a gigantic fucking laser onto the relics, destroying them. The Shadow King gets really pissed, and then just completely curb stomps. Like, we need to have them the Shadow King needs to be threatening. Why? Because when after the Shadow King completely curb stomps him, in comes Remus. Remus sees the writing on the wall, and then Remus completely decides to completely fuck over the Shadow King, proves why he's the top dog, and then we get the ending like as progress. He shuts them in the crystal. He makes the new. He basically tells Mario, "It's like, well, I gotta make new relics. It'll take some time, but you save the day. We're gonna have a party, and then of course we get Goomba like getting wedgie, and that's it." So that is my review of Somewhere in the Rainbow. Not the best story, but I do wish it was an enjoyable ride. I just really wish the ending was not that bad. Honestly, if the ending wasn't as bad as it was, I probably would have recommended it. It's really just the ending that's holding it back. Kinda sad to say. So, it has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.